We were on a business trip when the plane started to go down. While everyone else was writing their last will and testament, I, an orphan, decided to play a little joke on my boss. "Hey boss, long story short, I'm in love with you. Like, really, really in love with you. Goodbye, boss." Then, at the last possible second, the pilot pulled off a miracle, drawing on years of experience to save us all. I was still in a daze when the plane landed safely. That is, until I saw my boss, flanked by a row of bodyguards in black suits, sprinting toward me with bloodshot eyes. The cabin was in utter chaos. People were screaming, crying, and wailing. I was the odd one out, my face a blank mask of indifference. But no one noticed my hands, hidden at my sides, gripping my pants so tightly that the skin on my white-knuckled fingers was peeling away. Some were scribbling farewell notes, others were typing furiously on their phones. That's when I remembered, quickly pulled out my phone. My Scrooge of a boss, always needing to be able to reach me, had given me a satellite phone. My breathing grew ragged, but when I thought about my 25 years of life, there was nothing and no one I'd really miss. No family, no friends, just endless work. A slow smile crept across my face. I found my chat with my boss. Just as I was about to type, the plane jolted violently. If it weren't for the seatbelt, I would have been thrown from my seat. Luggage flew through the air, slamming into me. A sharp pain shot through my body, and I felt a warm wetness on my face. I touched it, and my hand came away covered in blood. Even I, Mr. Calm and Collected, was terrified now. Tears began to stream silently down my cheeks. I clutched my phone and continued typing my message, but with a new sense of urgency. "Hey boss, long story short, I'm in love with you." The blood from my hand smeared the screen, and the blood on my face dripped into my eyes, blurring my vision. I hastily wiped the blood from my eyes and kept typing. Like, really, really in love with you. I was moved by my own prank. My silent tears turned into sobs, and soon I was bawling just like everyone else. Frank was a terrible boss. Sure, he was serious, meticulous, brilliant, a genius, handsome, and a total neat freak, but he was also incredibly generous. As his assistant, I was already making a six-figure salary. But I was tired. So tired. I was on call 24/7. I had no personal life, no friends to speak of. As I wept over my life, the plane pitched even more violently. A flight attendant was thrown hard in my direction. Just as I hit send on, "Goodbye, boss," the phone was knocked out of my hand. I caught the flight attendant, holding her tight to keep her from getting hurt again. I was sure I was going to die, but the pilot managed to pull us out of it. When the plane finally touched down, I was still clenching my teeth, my eyes squeezed shut, holding on for dear life to the unconscious flight attendant in my arms. I guess holding someone made the idea of dying feel a little less lonely. A wave of cries and cheers washed over the cabin. When I opened my eyes and looked out the window, the dark night was ablaze with lights. The plane was surrounded by fire trucks, ambulances, and police cars. My whole body ached. It took about half an hour before anyone got to me. First, paramedics took the flight attendant, and I was relieved to see them put a neck brace on her. At least she wasn't dead. When someone came to help me, I found I could still stand. I didn't feel any broken bones. After getting off the plane, I was surrounded by people. A staff member guided me toward an ambulance. Suddenly, as if by telepathy, I spotted a figure in the distance, surrounded by a group of bodyguards in black. It was my boss, my own personal Scrooge, Frank, looking around frantically. The moment our eyes met, everything else seemed to fade away. Even from so far away, I could clearly see the expression on his face, and I was shocked by his state. His eyes were bloodshot. The man who was never seen without a pristine three-piece suit was wearing pajamas. He wasn't even wearing slippers. His pale, bony feet were standing right on the dusty tarmac of the airport. The sight made my eye twitch. My boss was a massive germaphobe. How could he stand being barefoot like that? The instant he saw me, his dead, bloodshot eyes seemed to spark back to life. Frank ran toward me like a man possessed. A whole swarm of bodyguards followed him, but the scene was so chaotic that not many people noticed. By the time he pulled me into his arms, my once calm heart was pounding so hard I thought it would burst. I hadn't died on the plane, but I felt like I was about to have a heart attack right there. And then, in my boss's cold embrace, I passed out. When I woke up again, I was surrounded by white, and 4 was hooked up to my hand. A nurse saw I was awake and immediately went to get the doctor. My head was wrapped up like a mummy. After a series of checkups, my memory started to come back. Holy crap, I confessed to my boss, and then he ran out to meet me without any shoes on and hugged me. Could he actually like me? That didn't seem right. If you like someone, wouldn't you give them less work, special treatment, and bigger bonuses? Just as I was thinking this, the door burst open. Speak of the devil. Frank walked in, followed by a doctor. He stood to the side with a stern look on his face while the doctor examined me. I felt a little awkward and couldn't bring myself to look at him. The doctor finished his checkup and said there were no major issues, just multiple soft tissue bruises and a swollen head with 7 stitches that needed monitoring. I nodded, feeling as fragile as a porcelain doll. Once the medical staff left, Frank didn't say anything. He just stared at me with a complicated expression. His gaze was making me antsy, and I couldn't sleep. Boss? Does this count as a work-related injury? No, he said, his voice cold and distant. My spirits sank. A wave of hurt and bitterness washed over me. Okay, well, I have insurance anyway. By the way, boss, that message I sent you earlier, it was a joke. Frank's expression finally changed. He looked at me coldly. A joke? Yeah, a joke. That way you'd remember your loyal assistant. Haha. My 2 dry laughs made his face darken completely. You've lost this month's bonus. What? Couldn't believe it. The hurt and bitterness vanished, replaced by pure outrage. You cheapskate. I was on a business trip for you, trying to land a project. Not only is this not a work injury, but you're docking my bonus? Frank, I never knew you could be so heartless. Even if I were just a regular colleague, you should show some concern. I'm a patient, not your sworn enemy. I roared, wanting to curse him out, but looking at his ridiculously handsome face, I couldn't bring myself to use any real swear words. Damn it, I quit. I'm done. I pounded the edge of the bed in frustration. You can't. You signed a 10-year contract. Oh, the injustice of it all. The emotional turmoil made me feel lightheaded, and I fell straight back onto the bed. Frank, who had been so stern just a moment ago, rushed forward in a panic, catching my shoulders and pulling me into his arms. My head throbbed, my vision went black, and I broke out in a cold sweat. Frank's hands trembled as he held me. I suddenly remembered the hug at the airport and the sight of his pale, beautiful feet. Frank, why weren't you wearing any shoes back then? I asked the question that had been bugging me. Frank's lips were pressed into a thin line. He seemed to be wrestling with himself before his deep voice sounded next to my ear. When you said you liked me, was it a lie? Of course, I answered without a second thought. I heard him exhale beside me, as if a great weight had been lifted. My heart ached with bitterness. Of course, he was afraid I actually liked him. No one knew the truth that I really did like him. I just kept brainwashing myself into thinking I didn't. No one knew that on the plane, I had used a joke to tell him the truth. I figured, whether he believed it or not, at least I had said it and had no regrets. But I never expected this outcome. My secret love was doomed from the start. Frank gently laid me back down on the bed. I closed my eyes, wanting to escape the awkward atmosphere. A short while later, Frank left. He arranged for a caregiver for me, and I was in a private deluxe room, which was very comfortable. An official paid sick leave. I was determined to rest for a few more days. During my hospital stay, Frank didn't visit once. The caregiver brought me a new phone. I logged back into our company's internal messaging system. Scrolling through old messages, I saw everyone discussing the near-fatal crash of Flight 117. They were all praising the heroic pilot for his calm and decisive actions that saved everyone. Then, in the messages from the last couple of days, everyone in the private group chat was gossiping about Frank bringing his new girlfriend to inspect the company. My eyes widened. I held the phone with both hands, staring intently at the screen. There was even a photo someone named Chloe had secretly taken from behind. Frank, in a dark blue suit, was turned to the side, speaking to a beautiful, gentle-looking woman. From this angle, I could see the tenderness in his expression, a look I had never seen before. I felt like I couldn't breathe. My head suddenly started to throb with an insane pain. I clutched my head, writhing on the bed. The caregiver saw me and immediately ran to get a doctor. In an instant, I was back on the plane. I was surrounded by crying people, unable to tell what was real and what wasn't. Felt like this whole thing had been a dream. I shook my head desperately, but my surroundings didn't change. The sharp screams, the luggage crashing down everywhere, the red haze in front of my eyes. I touched my head, and my hand came back wet with warm blood. I was terrified. I was still on the plane. It hadn't landed safely. Everything had been a pre-death hallucination. There was no Frank running toward me, no sterile white hospital room, no awkward conversation between us. I trembled with fear, clutching my head and screaming, "No, I don't want to die. I don't want to." If I hadn't been given that tiny bit of warmth, I wouldn't be this afraid of death. As the plane nosedived toward the ground, a sea of fire swallowed me whole. When I woke up, I vaguely heard a conversation between the doctor and Frank. A psychiatric condition? Yes, and it doesn't seem to be from the plane incident alone. He's likely had this for a long time, and a recent trigger caused a relapse. His parents are gone, and the rest of his family has passed away. He hasn't had an easy life. You said keeping him busy would help him forget the pain. It's my fault I ignored his mental health. My thoughts swirled in a haze. How did Frank know all that? By the time I was fully awake, the doctor had left. Frank sat quietly beside me, watching me stare at the ceiling. "You're awake?" "Yeah." "Frank, are you real?" Couldn't be sure. Everything before I fainted felt too real. The sea of fire, the sound of my hair burning still seemed to hiss in my ears. Frank wore his usual deadpan expression. It was rare to see any other emotion on his face. But his actions confused me. He took both of my hands and guided them to his face. His skin was smooth, his nose prominent. By the time I realized what was happening, I had been touching his face for a while. I quickly pulled my hands back, my face burning. My whole body felt awkward. "I'm real. Don't be afraid." Frank's voice was so gentle it made me wonder if he actually cared about me. Don't worry about work. The doctor says you can be discharged. You don't have anyone at home to take care of you, so why don't you move in with me for a while? I have a housekeeper." My eyes widened in shock. He coughed twice. "After all, you are my most capable assistant." The little ripple of hope in my heart settled back down. Just then, Frank's phone rang. I glanced over and saw the name Sophie. Frank answered the call. His voice filled with a tenderness I had never heard before. I remembered the picture Chloe had sent. So that's how it is. I laughed at myself. I still went home with Frank. Because I was scared. I was scared of reliving that day, of the sea of fire, of the despair of death. Frank's home was a luxurious, sprawling apartment downtown, over 4,000 square feet. There were plenty of rooms. A housekeeper came daily to clean and make dinner, but she would leave afterward, so it was mostly just the two of us. He wouldn't let me go to work, saying he was giving me 2 weeks off and that Larry would cover for me. My anxiety made it hard to eat. I only calmed down after he repeatedly assured me that he wasn't firing me, just making me rest. Honestly, I was fine, but my emotions had been on a roller coaster lately, happy one moment, sad the next. This constant mix left me with severe insomnia. Because I didn't want Frank to worry, I would go to bed early every day and just lie there, perfectly still with my eyes closed. A few times, Frank came in to check on me, and I would pretend to snore softly until he left, reassured. But as I grew thinner by the day, Frank started to worry anyway. "Alexander, you should go out for a walk. Or maybe go to the Maldives for a few days." "No, it's okay, boss. I'm fine. The stitches come out the day after tomorrow. I feel much better. I can go back to work." "No, you're taking another 2 weeks off." "Boss, are you sure you're not trying to fire me? Or is something going on at the company?" I trailed off. I had seen the photos of Frank and that woman in the company chat more than once. They looked great together. The group chat was even shipping them as a couple. A bitter feeling soured in my gut. I often woke up with a jolt in the middle of the night. I kept dreaming about the plane crash, about Frank running to hug me, even about Frank arranging my funeral and Frank getting married. Every time I woke up, I felt a strong sense of world weariness. Maybe I really did have a mental illness. I remembered the first time I met Frank. It was in 7th grade. My parents had passed away, and I was living with my grandfather. We had no money and often went hungry. My homeroom teacher organized a fundraiser for me. The prideful teenager in me felt embarrassed, but then I thought about how this money would save my grandfather from having to scavenge through trash for a long time, and I accepted it. The donations were just from our class. When my teacher gave me the list of names, I saw an unfamiliar one. Frank, $2,000. It was the largest amount. The teacher said he was the top student in the 9th grade and had insisted on donating when he saw the notice in the office. You should thank him when you have time, or write him a thank you note. I bowed to my teacher. The total was $3,158. It was enough to keep my grandfather and me well fed for several months. But I never wrote Frank a thank you note, nor did I ever seek him out. I just watched him from a distance. A boy full of sunshine, his hair damp with sweat, running gracefully on the sports field, his handsome figure drawing screams from the crowd. That vibrant, confident life force struck a chord in my heart. For the first time, I understood the word like, and from that moment I knew I was different from everyone else. I didn't dare approach him. It was a cowardly palpitation of my youth. Then I was a freshman in high school and I saw him again, now a senior. The boyishness had faded, replaced by maturity. But the sudden jolt in my heart, the frantic beating, scared me. The cool, noble teenager looked my way. I couldn't tear my eyes away. He seemed to pause for a moment. Then, under my unwavering gaze, a slight smile touched his lips before he turned and walked away. I let out a breath, my whole body trembling uncontrollably, terrified that my little secret had been discovered. Next came my grandfather's death. My world collapsed. I had no one left. I wouldn't have money for the next semester, let alone for food. I mustered all my courage and thought for 3 days before I dared to ask my high school teacher for help. But my pot-bellied homeroom teacher said there was nothing he could do. It turned out that not all teachers loved their students. I dropped out. Before I left, I did the boldest thing in my life. I wrote Frank a confession letter on the cheapest stationery I could find, sealed in an envelope I glued together myself. On the last day of my freshman year, I gathered my courage and asked a senior girl in Frank's class to pass it on for me. From then on, our paths diverged. My secret love ended there. I never thought I'd run into an old classmate again, let alone Ben, my outstanding high school class president. He gave me a warm hug when he saw me, chattering excitedly about the good old days. He didn't mention my poverty or my struggles, just the pure joy of seeing a long-lost friend. Alexander, we're having a class reunion tomorrow. You should come. I refused without a second thought. I didn't really know those classmates. Back in school, I could barely afford to eat, so I had no energy for making friends. Only Ben had been kind to me, often asking if I needed help. Don't say no. A lot of people cared about you. After you dropped out, several classmates asked me about you, but you had moved and I couldn't find you. Are you doing okay now? I'm doing great. Really, don't just take my word for it. My Chris, Grace, Chloe, they all asked about you. We have a small group chat. You wouldn't believe it. Chloe even had a crush on you. She cried after you left. I stared at him, my eyes wide with disbelief. In school, I was skinny, malnourished, and sallow-skinned. A girl had a crush on me? Ha ha ha, I'm not kidding, you were pretty handsome back then. You had this broody, princely vibe, and your eyes were really nice, very clear. We all liked you. Come on, please? We can catch up. I hesitated. Well, I was making a 6-figure salary now. I guess I had earned the right to make some friends. I agreed to his invitation. Ben was thrilled and immediately announced it in the group chat. Less than 3 seconds later, someone replied. It was Chloe. Whoa, for real? Don't lie to us, Mr. President. Ben threw an arm around me and snapped a picture. Before I could react, the photo of me, mouth agape and staring blankly at the camera, was already posted in the group. I shook my head with a sigh. Whatever. It's not like there was anyone in there I cared about. When I got back to Frank's place, he wasn't home yet. I washed up and went to bed, feeling a mix of nervousness and excitement about tomorrow's reunion. I woke up the next day to find Frank eating breakfast. I'll go with you to get your stitches out today. You don't have to, boss. I can go by myself. After that, I might go to a class reunion. A reunion? Yeah, I nodded. Okay. Don't drink. Come back early. After removing the stitches, the doctor said I was recovering well. He asked how I'd been feeling lately, and I told him my insomnia was severe. The doctor looked at me. I have a friend who's a psychology PhD. I can introduce you to. Talking to him might help with your sleep. I looked up at the doctor. His gaze was gentle, the kind meant to help a patient. I smiled and nodded. Thank you, doctor. I'll do that. I took the business card and hailed a cab to the reunion. The entire ride, I was filled with nervous energy, constantly checking to see if my clothes and shoes matched, if my watch was appropriate. I finally arrived at a well-known restaurant downtown. As soon as I got out of the car, I saw the class president at the entrance. Alexander, over here. I walked over and bumped fists with Ben. He excitedly told me that several classmates had already arrived and urged me to go inside. I felt a bit shy and wanted to wait for him to go in with me. Ben noticed my hesitation, smiled, and patted my shoulder, slinging an arm around me as he led me inside. As soon as we entered the private room, all eyes turned to us. A girl with a chic short haircut exclaimed, "Alexander." I looked over. "Chloe." "Yes, it's me." "Wow, my high school crush, you really came. You have no idea. I had a crush on you back in middle school." The girl was open and graceful, and while her words made me blush, they didn't make me uncomfortable. "Come on in. Even though I'm married now, I still want my crush to sit next to me." "Humph. They'll let just about anyone in here." A snarky male voice chimed in. I looked over. The face was familiar, but I couldn't place the name. "Derek, what did you just say?" Ben interjected. Then it hit me. This guy was one of the richer kids in class who didn't do well in school. He loved to bully others. A good-for-nothing. But I couldn't recall ever having any interaction with him. I didn't say anything and let Ben seat me next to Chloe. On my other side was a guy with glasses named Zach, another classmate I didn't know well. Looking around the reunion, I realized I had barely spoken to almost anyone here. I was starting to regret coming. Zach smiled and greeted me, and we shook hands. Chloe had a bubbly personality and chattered away in my ear, which actually helped ease my nerves. I started to chat warmly with them. Derek looked over at us, his face full of disdain. Zach whispered that Derek was a snob who only cared about people with money and power. He was only at the reunion to suck up to Ben, who was now an official in the disciplinary inspection department. I didn't comment. He certainly didn't look like a good person. More people arrived, and many of them were friendly, coming over to say hello. I started to relax, feeling like I was back in middle and high school, since many of them had been my high school classmates too. Once everyone was there, Ben gave a speech. He specifically mentioned running into me the day before, saying it was fate and that childhood friendships were precious and should be cherished. I stuck to drinking juice with the girls, mindful that I was still a patient who had just gotten his stitches out. Halfway through the dinner, several guys were already drunk, including Derek. "Hey you, Alexander, you can't just drink juice. You have to toast everyone. After all, we all donated money to you back in the day." Derek's words instantly cast a chill over the room. No one knew what to say, and several people shot him disapproving glares. But Derek didn't notice and continued, "I donated $100 back then. That was enough to buy your family groceries for a week. Derek, you've had too much to drink." "That's enough," Ben said sternly. "Hey, Mr. President, I'll listen to you." "Me? I've started a few companies, making a decent living, just a few tens of millions. I'll be counting on your help in the future, Mr. President." Derek then tried to put his arm around Ben, who dodged him. Derek wasn't fazed and kept rambling. Some classmates tried to change the subject, asking what everyone did for a living. The camaraderie of classmates was something you couldn't find in the workplace, and everyone openly shared their professions. Some owned supermarkets, some were civil servants, some were teachers. When Derek heard someone owned a company, he'd go over to toast them, but he was dismissive of those who owned supermarkets or worked as delivery drivers, making the atmosphere incredibly awkward. "Alexander, what do you do?" Grace asked me. I smiled and said, "I'm an assistant." Derek scoffed. "Alexander, you probably didn't go to college after dropping out, right? What kind of company would hire you as an assistant? Tell us so I know which companies to avoid." Chloe slammed her hand on the table and shot up. "Derek, are you ever going to shut up? This is a class reunion, not your personal show-off session." Chloe, with her lively personality, didn't mince words. Derek felt deeply embarrassed and his breathing grew heavy with anger. "I'm not going to argue with a woman like you. So petty. You don't know a thing. If you don't use a class reunion to network, what do you think this is? A singles mixer? Oh, right, maybe you are here to find a date. Does my brother-in-law know about this?" Chloe stood up, ready to charge at Derek, but Grace held her back. I found it laughable and I actually let out a small laugh. My voice was lazy as I leaned back in my chair, radiating an air of authority I had learned from Frank. In the corporate world, no one dared to speak to me like that. I was Frank's assistant, his right-hand man, the CEO with 50% of the decision-making power. I had been completely transformed. I had no reason to feel inferior. At that moment, I was unusually calm. "Derek, what's the name of your company?" Derek didn't expect me to ask him this. He sneered, "Heh, I own Infinite Media and Infinite Electronics." Some people in the room gasped, "Wow." I almost laughed out loud. I had indeed heard of his company, but comparing it to Way Corporation was as ridiculous as comparing a small-time boss with a few million to a titan on the Forbes list. "What, never heard of it?" Derek misinterpreted my expression as shock. I shook my head, not wanting to argue with him. It was enough to know what kind of person he was. I calmed Chloe down, chatting with her about her kids and promising to visit and give them big red envelopes. That finally made her smile. Seeing that I was ignoring him, Derek felt insulted and started drinking heavily. There were indeed some sycophants among the classmates. A few guys and girls started to cozy up to Derek, which improved his mood. He began to boast arrogantly about his company's future, as if he were the richest man in the world. The reunion went on until after 10 o'clock. Many people were happily drunk, and I figured it was time for me to leave. I transferred $1,000 to the class president and was about to slip out. The door to the private room was wide open because it was too hot inside, which made my exit easier. As I stood up, Derek saw me. He came over, slinging an arm around my shoulder. The smell of alcohol on his breath was overpowering. "Alexander, don't be in such a hurry to leave. You haven't had a drink. Are you looking down on your old classmates?" "I'm on medication right now, I can't drink." "Ha ha 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 ha. Why are you using a girl's excuse? Come on, have a drink with your big bro," he said, pouring me a full glass of hard liquor. I pushed it away, refusing. "Are you looking down on me? Are you?" Derek started acting like a child. Just then, Ben came over to stop him. Alexander hit his head and just got his stitches out. "He really can't drink. There are plenty of other people here to drink with you." Ben tried to pull Derek away. Derek shook him off, a lewd grin on his face. "Alexander, you're into guys, aren't you?" I felt like I had been struck by lightning. I looked at Derek in disbelief. Seeing my expression, he grew even more smug. "You all might not know this, but I do." I felt the blood rush to my head. This was my secret, my taboo. How did he know? I froze on the spot, wanting to run, to escape, but my feet felt nailed to the floor. My mind went blank. I was like a rabbit waiting to be slaughtered. You see, I know this older girl from our school. And guess what? Our dear Alexander wrote a love letter to a boy. That girl is a friend of mine. She told me Alexander asked her to pass along a love letter to a guy in her class. I had never been so scared in my life. I was terrified he would say Frank's name. I trembled all over, my blood turning to ice. Derek was still talking. "Derek, Shut the fuck up. Chloe couldn't stand it anymore and yelled at him. Derek shot back, what's the big deal? We're all adults. Why can't we talk about it? I don't know who he wrote the letter to, but my friend said she found it disgusting, so she threw it away. Ha 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 ha. My heart started beating again. Thank God he didn't say Frank's name. But I also felt a pang of loss. So that was the bad ending to my school-era confession. He had never even received my letter. Then again, Frank was the golden boy, he probably got tons of love letters every day. Derek was annoyed by my silence. He wanted to see me dragged through the mud. He hated that all the girls were paying attention to me. Why the hell aren't you saying anything? Derek stared at me menacingly. Suddenly, a deep, cold voice with an air of authority came from the doorway. Why should he talk to a clown? Everyone turned to look at the doorway. I saw him too, Frank and Sophie, the woman who was with him. I felt like my head was going to explode. Today was clearly not my lucky day. I shouldn't have come. Derek froze when he saw the person at the door. Why you're Frank? Frank walked in, every step commanding the room's attention. You tell me, why should he talk to you? Why should he bother with a clown like you? Frank stared at Derek, his eyes so cold it looked like he could kill him with a glance. Mr. Wilton, a misunderstanding, just a misunderstanding. Alexander and I are old classmates, we were just joking around. Oh? Joking, you say? What company are you with? Derek's face was plastered with a sycophantic smile as he quickly pulled out his business card. Mr. Wilton, I'm Derek Wu, the general manager of Infinite Electronics. We actually have a partnership with Yaoi Corporation. Oh, is that so? Frank took out his phone and made a call. Larry, terminate all cooperation with Infinite Electronics. Blacklist them. Derek panicked. Mr. Wilton, it's a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. After hanging up, Frank looked at Derek with an icy stare. The latter stumbled backward in fear but still tried to suck up to him for the sake of his business. Mr. Wilton, what did I do to offend you? Please tell me, and I'll be sure to apologize properly. We're even alumni, did you know that? Frank looked at me, standing frozen in place, and held out a hand. Alexander, come here. I stared at him, stunned, and walked over step by step. Everyone was looking at us. It was only then that Derek realized Frank was standing up for me. Hey, it's a misunderstanding. Alexander, I was just kidding with you. Don't be mad at an old friend. I was just drunk. I'm sorry. Okay? Could you please talk to Mr. Wilton? We're all classmates. Forgive me, will you? I just have a big mouth. But I'm not a bad person. As he spoke, Derek even slapped his own face a couple of times. Alexander taught himself enough to get into a top-tier university, earning a double master's degree with an IELTS score of 8.5. He's self-taught in Japanese, Spanish, and French. He is the executive CEO of my company, my top assistant, with a six-figure salary. What right do you have to look down on him? Everyone turned to me in shock, which actually made me a little embarrassed. Wow, Alexander, you're amazing. You have to teach my son English in the future, Chloe said, her eyes sparkling. The others also began to praise me sincerely. The class president patted my shoulder. I knew you could do it, kid. You were always a good student. I knew you wouldn't just drop out completely. Derek's face turned beet red. He knew how much weight those qualifications carried. His earlier words were a complete self-humiliation. He had also managed to offend Yaoi Corporation, the one industry giant he couldn't afford to cross. He was finished. Regret filled him, and he wished the ground would swallow him whole. His earlier arrogance had completely vanished. After speaking, Frank told the waiter that Yaoi Corporation would pick up the tab and then led me out. The class president quickly thanked Frank. A meal here cost tens of thousands, and for Frank to just treat everyone, they were all grateful. When we reached the lobby, I remembered Sophie. She was sitting quietly, waiting. That's when the bitter feelings started to creep back in. You're on a date. I'll head back by myself. I won't bother you. I started to walk away, but Frank grabbed my arm. He led me to Sophie. Sophie, I'll have the driver take you home. Larry will follow up on the collaboration with G Corporation. Okay, cousin. I won't keep you. I have to go on a date anyway. My boyfriend is getting impatient. With that, she scurried away, showing a lively, cute side that was a world away from her previous gentle demeanor. She's your cousin? Frank didn't say anything. He just grabbed my hand and walked outside. His grip was so tight my hand felt like it was burning, though I couldn't tell if the heat was from my hand or his. I was sure my face was just as red. The heart I thought had sunk seemed to reignite. Once in the car, Frank seemed to be in a rush, driving at breakneck speed. We were home in no time. After getting out, Frank took my hand again. I was stunned for a moment, not knowing what had gotten into him. But seeing how urgent he seemed, I didn't know what to say. Was he trying to comfort me? Or had he overheard something else? As soon as we were inside, Frank's breathing became heavy. Before I could say a word, he grabbed my shoulders and pinned me against the wall. Alexander, that love letter you gave a girl in high school, it was meant for someone else, wasn't it? My mind went blank. Why was Frank asking about this? Did he overhear Derek? I looked down and said nothing. Wasn't it? The pain in my shoulders intensified. Yes, it was for someone else. Who? Frank pressed. What does it matter to you who it was for? Frank's eyes dimmed. A moment ago they seemed to hold starlight, but now they looked like fallen stars. I couldn't bear to see him like that. A surge of courage came from nowhere. I lifted my head and stared at him. His eyes were bloodshot from the intense emotion. It was you, I said firmly. What? Frank asked, bewildered. It was you. The love letter back then. I asked that girl to give it to you. I finally said it. The grand secret love of my school days was coming to an end today. Frank looked at me in disbelief. His eyes filled with an emotion I couldn't understand. If you think it's disgusting, I can resign. I promise I won't bother you. I rambled, like a defendant awaiting a verdict for which I held no hope. Frank spoke, his voice trembling as if he were holding back an uncontrollable impulse. Alexander, do you trust me? The starlight returned to his eyes, as if he were looking at a treasure. I was startled by my own thought, then looked at him and nodded firmly. Frank nodded, let me go, and said, wait for me before turning to leave. The sound of the door closing made me jump. Watching his retreating figure, I was lost. I had no idea what he meant, but I trusted him. He would give me an answer. He wouldn't make me wait for nothing. I trusted him like I trusted my own life. I could never forget my first job interview. I only had an associate's degree from a self-study program. I was completely unqualified for Yaoi Corporation. But I got an interview notice. The interviewers were all very kind and told me to wait for a response. And then I got the job. I started from the very bottom. The company gave me opportunities, sponsored my work-study master's degree, and actively supported my continued education. I worked during the day and studied at night. That period was fulfilling because I could see Frank at any time. It took me 3 years to get to his side and become his assistant. Because of the constant business trips, I studied English, pushing myself relentlessly. For a while, I even asked Frank to only speak English with me. I was a good student, a fast learner. Then I taught myself other languages. Even now, I've never stopped learning because I want to get closer and closer to Frank. I've been his assistant for 5 years. I can now handle things on my own, becoming the feared executive assistant in the company. I am serious. I am steady. I can accomplish anything Frank asks of me. I work like an emotionless machine, shouldering Frank's burdens. I've achieved that, and that should be enough. How could I dare to ask for more? But I really, really want it. Frank was gone for 7 days. A whole week. Not a single call, not a single text. My feelings went from excited, anxious waiting to final despair. I didn't know if I should stay here or go back to my own place and submit my resignation. I even went to see the psychologist the doctor had recommended. The psychologist said I was holding too much in, that the slightest thing could snap the tightly wound string inside me. My condition wasn't good. I was even having hallucinations and physical reactions. He wanted to put me on medication, but I refused. I told him my story, the plane crash, my life over the years. It was like I had found an outlet, and I told him everything I wanted to say. I even told him about my secret love for Frank. He said that perhaps Frank was my medicine. The doctor said if the hallucinations came back, I had to take the medicine, but he hoped I could heal by changing my life. In the end, I still got some pills, because it was for my own good. I wanted to get better. On the 8th day, a beautiful woman came to see me. "Hello, Alexander. I'm Frank's mother." I awkwardly invited her in. "Ma'am, where's Frank?" "He's at home, recovering from his injuries." "What?" I shot up from my seat. "He ran home, announced he liked men, and wanted to marry a man. His father and grandfather gave him a tag team beating." I was stunned. All I could think was, "Frank came out. Don't worry, he's not going to die. But I was hoping I could take you somewhere. Would that be okay?" I nodded. I never expected his mother to take me to the old family home. She said this was where Frank grew up. She then led me to his study, which was locked. As she unlocked the door with a key, she chattered on, "I stole this from Frank's room, you know." I couldn't help but smile. His mom was adorable. Walking into the room, I froze. The study was huge. One entire wall was covered with photos of me. Photos I had never seen before, like someone had been secretly taking them. Middle school, high school, college, tutoring sessions, part-time jobs, passing out flyers, eating a plain bun, even a picture of me on my first day, walking into the Way Corporation headquarters full of determination. I felt like it was getting hard to breathe. On a bookshelf, I saw my report cards, middle school, high school, college, even my IELTS score sheets, from a 1 to an 8. 5. Each report card was a printout, with a note written in handsome calligraphy next to it. Excellent. I recognized Frank's handwriting. There was also a love letter written on blue stationery from high school. Beside it, a sentence was written. "Why wasn't this written to me, Alexander?" My eyes welled up. He had thought I wrote it for that senior girl. But I had meant for her to give it to him, which she never did. And I had forgotten to write his name on it. I thought handing it to him would be enough to show it was for him. I didn't sign my name at the bottom, just my initials at. His mother brought me a few thick notebooks. I opened one. It was Frank's diary. The first sentence read, "His name is Alexander, bright like a clear day. He is my clear day." What followed were scenes from middle school. He's so small. He bumped into me and kept his head down, apologizing. I see him drinking water like crazy every day. Why does he drink so much? Is he that thirsty? He always has this nice smell. I don't know why, but I always want to get closer to him to smell it. Turns out he's always hungry. That's why he drinks so much water. I donated money to him. I hope he won't be hungry anymore. Is he hungry again? How can I give him money? Maybe through the student union. There are lots of work-study opportunities. I'll have Chad give him one. So that's why the student union had me clean the storage room back then, paying me $100 each time. It was him. I cried silently. His mother handed me a tissue. I managed a choked thank you. There was so much more, and every entry was about me. This notebook started from when I became his assistant. Alexander was so busy today, but I don't want him out of my sight for a second. Alexander always smells so good. It's my favorite scent. He says he never wears cologne. Alexander's natural scent. It's like my genes are telling me I like him. Alexander wore a blue jacket today. I'm going home at lunch to change into a matching one. Alexander is always chatting with Linda. Does he like her? Alexander is amazing. He passed the certification I told him to get so quickly. Such a brilliant mind. I was already sobbing, completely overwhelmed. His mother spoke. It was only after reading these that I understood how much my son loves you. He's been watching you since you were in school. I know him, he's incredibly stubborn. If you didn't love him back, he would never have confessed to you. He has to be absolutely sure before he does anything. So, the moment he understood your feelings, he rushed home to come out. He said he wanted to eliminate any obstacles beforehand so you wouldn't have to suffer even a little bit. The last page of the diary was wrinkled, as if stained by tears. There were 2 lines written on it. "Please God, keep him safe. If there's an accident, I will die with him." That was from the day after the near crash. I didn't know how he could have written those words. I remembered him at the airport, in his pajamas, barefoot, searching for me. His mom said his will was in the safe. He was scared. He said life is unpredictable, plane crashes, car accidents, death can happen at any time. So he got a lawyer and wrote a will, leaving all his property and savings to me. That boy hasn't left himself any way out since he fell for you. If you didn't love him, he probably would never marry or have children, never love anyone else. My tears flowed freely, my heart filled with a bittersweet ache. I felt like my life was finally complete. His room is next door. You should go see him. I turned and walked away. But when I reached the door, I didn't dare open it. I took a deep breath and gently pushed it open. Frank wasn't lying in bed. He was standing by the window looking out. He must have seen me walking into the villa. "You're here?" Before Frank could turn around, I rushed forward and wrapped my arms tightly around his waist from behind. His body stiffened for a moment. He lowered his head, and his large hand covered mine where they were clasped around him. His body began to tremble slightly. I heard a faint sob. He was crying. I turned him around and saw his tear-streaked face. My heart ached for him. I reached out and gently stroked his face, then stood on my tiptoes and planted a kiss on his lips. I used to think I wasn't good enough for him, that my grand, secret love could last until death. But now I take back all my assumptions. Frank, I like you. I really, really like you. I've liked you for a very long time. I like you the most. Frank's lips trembled as he repeated in a choked voice, "You like me. You've liked me for a long time," as if he couldn't be sure. "Yes, I like you. I've always liked you. Only you. Only me. Yes, only you. There's never been anyone else. No one else." I cupped his face. "Frank, I love you." Frank looked at me with his red-rimmed eyes and finally pulled me into a fierce hug. I felt a warm liquid on my neck, and likewise, his chest was wet with the tears I shed for this moment of happiness. We will be happy, always and forever. Frank's perspective. "Hey boss, long story short, I'm in love with you. Like, really, really in love with you." When I saw Alexander's messages, I felt my breath catch in my throat. Before I could even feel happy, another one came through. "Goodbye, boss." I shot up from my chair. What was happening? I immediately tried to call him, but no one answered. Just then, a real-time news alert popped up on my phone. European Air Flight 117 has lost contact. The situation is currently unknown. My mind exploded. I shakily picked up my phone to call my uncle at the airport, who told me it was complete chaos. I couldn't hear anything. I just felt my heart stop beating. I ran outside like a madman, giving orders as I went. The driver was waiting, along with several cars of bodyguards. I don't even know what I told them. My mind was just blankly arranging things. In the car, I kept making calls, asking about the flight status, refreshing the news. I was too scared to look, scared to see news that the plane had crashed. My mind was a total blank. I was shaking uncontrollably. I kept calling Alexander's phone, but no one answered. The satellite phone I had gotten him specifically so I could always find him, but no one was answering. Had something already happened? Couldn't bear the thought. Fear consumed my entire body. I curled up in the back of the car, clutching my head in terror. The driver asked if I needed to go to the hospital. I screamed at him to go to the airport, to have Uncle Gu arrange for my car to drive onto the tarmac. I couldn't bear to think about how scared my Alexander must be. Would he be in pain? The thought alone shattered my heart. I hated myself for making him go on this business trip. I hated myself so much. I could never forgive myself. When I got to the airport, it was swarming with ambulances, police cars, and fire trucks. The gravity of the situation was obvious. I prayed, staring up at the sky. Finally, a plane came into view. It was coming back. It landed safely. My heart finally settled. I was afraid to go closer. I didn't dare. All my courage had been stripped away. People started coming down the emergency slides. Paramedics went up, carrying down many injured passengers. My eyes scanned frantically, but I couldn't see clearly. Security personnel stopped me when I tried to get closer. And then I saw him, my Alexander. His head was covered in blood, and he was just staring blankly at me. I threw all caution to the wind and sprinted toward him. The feeling of getting him back was like being reborn. I found my chat with my boss. Alexander fainted in my arms. I anxiously followed the paramedics to the hospital. The doctors said Alexander's injuries weren't serious. The worst was a cut on his head, a concussion, and some swelling. He needed to be hospitalized for observation. I arranged the best room for him. My Alexander. I held his hand and didn't dare let go, as if he would disappear if I did. I held on for a whole day and night. By the time I came back, he was awake. He said the message he sent was a joke. I didn't care. As long as he was alive, that was all that mattered. I wouldn't ask for more. I prayed to God not to take him away from me. After I went home, I thought a lot. I called my lawyer and wrote a will. I had to leave something for Alexander. Life is unpredictable. Unexpected deaths happen every day. I was afraid that if I died, my Alexander would have no one to protect him. I left all my property and savings to him. That way, Alexander would be secure. If I didn't die, he would keep working at Yaoi Corporation, he would never lack for money, and he would have a good life. If one day he really did die, I think I would die with him. I wrote in my diary, "Please God, keep him safe. If there's an accident, I will die with him. This is my vow and also my last wish. I love Alexander. I hope that one day he will love me too."